good. I think we've got some clean sound here. Well, hi, everybody. I am Cheryl Grant. I'm the Director of Social Networking, and I have the very fun job of working with all of the grantees throughout the year. If you have any questions or needs, or you're trying to contact somebody or just figure out how it all works, I'm happy to help you, and we'll be doing some programming as we go forward, and you're going to, at least your PIs and some representatives from your groups are going to be joining us next week in California. I'm happy to introduce David Theo Goldberg, who is the Executive Director of the, went out of my mind, I will let you introduce David, because you've got one of those long titles, co-founder of Haystack and our fearless leader, and he's going to talk a little bit about the competition and what's coming up in the year ahead.
Thanks, Cheryl. I'm sorry you're going to hear some buzzing in the background because they're pruning palm trees right outside the window. So apologies for the noise. I'm David Theo Goldberg. I direct the competition. I'm also the director of the University of California Humanities Research Institute and the executive director of the Digital Media and Learning Research Hub, among other titles I won't bore you with. It's a pleasure to both to congratulate you and to welcome you to this 3/4 year project or initiative as winners of the Digital Media and Learning competition on Playlists for Learning. As you'll see, there'll be a whole host of activities that will be engaging in with you starting today, actually, but obviously next week. We look forward to seeing, at least some of us who will be there, look forward to seeing you face to face in Northern California, in Mountain View at the Microsoft site, in our engagement with LRNG and getting you directly acquainted with the LRNG platform that will host, at least host or co-host, the playlists that you are developing with the funds being made available to you through the competition. Let me just back up and say that the competition is a competition of Haystack and UCHI, and to some extent the Digital Media and Learning Research Hub. The grant comes to you from the University of California, Irvine, which is the sort of administrative platform for this. It's a grant really from Haystack and the competition, so you should be careful about not claiming you're getting a grant from the MacArthur Foundation. The funds we get are from the MacArthur Foundation, but they're not directly granting you, and don't want to be seen as the grantor of record in any public representation or internal institutional representation that you might make regarding the grant. So please be very careful about that. In your I think award letters, we provided you with the specific language you should be using, so please be mindful of that. It's quite important. You know, we'll all get chewed out otherwise, and we'd appreciate that. You know, as I say, the administrator of record for this initiative is Haystack, which consists of a bi-coastal, I was going to say bipolar, but it's not quite that, right? It's a bi-coastal team located on both coasts, both in Southern California at the University of California, Irvine, actually at the system-wide University of California Humanities Research Institute, which is based on the Irvine campus, but is UC-wide. You know, those folks consist of me and Jen Kinney and Gwen and a couple of others who will largely remain invisible to you. And then on the East Coast at North Carolina, functionally based at Duke University, Cheryl Grant, Mandy Daly, Demos, and so on, who help to make both these webinars possible. You're getting your funds possible through us at UCHRI, the filing of reports, and the oversight of the administration of the grant. So it's a pleasure really to be able to host you in this way. This webinar is intended to both welcome you and congratulate you, but also to provide you with some on-the-ground kind of information about how the grant process runs, to get you going, up and running, so that, you know, when we see you next week, the substantive work can really begin with zest. So terrific to get to know you, at least virtually. We'll get to know you in actuality next week. I mean, Cheryl and Jen, I think, have already started the process of doing that. And we look forward to working with you and seeing, you know, really the outcome of your project over the next 9 months. So I think I'll leave it at that and look forward to seeing you soon.
Great, thank you, David. I also, everybody wanted to say, feel free to put questions into the document, and you can share them back with your team when we're done. And also, if you have suggestions for what you would like to address at the LRNG workshop, we'll make sure to get that to the organizers so that we can dive into the workshop with your ideas at the forefront and the things that you would like answered. I'm just going to say a little bit about my position. Throughout the year, we are going to be having webinars. We try to have a lot of public facing, learn as you go, share out type of exercises that, if you are familiar with the DML competition, we have a winners hub where we have people blogging from their projects. We really try and maximize what it is that you're learning. You're some of the very first that are doing this, and a lot of people who have applied to the competition still continue to follow the work because they want to move forward with what they're doing as well. So I'm really the person that will be dragging that out of you. You will be getting emails from me with deadlines, but also I'm very receptive to your own suggestions, and this often works really well, has worked well in the past when people have ideas, or if you're starting to collaborate or you want to come up with collaborative exercises. We have a lot of programming resources that we can do to facilitate that. Those tend to be within, just amongst our group, but we can also do public facing ones. We can reach out to guest speakers if there are people that you would like to have come in and talk to you. It's going to be a short grant for us. Usually it's a year, so we'll try and pack in as much as possible without distracting you too much from the work we want you to get done. One of the first things that I've done, I think most of you have received an email about who is on your team so that I can put together a playlist. And it's really up to you about who you want on that list. If you have people that want to be receiving instructions about the blog and the Winners Hub, or how to connect with the rest of our community, or getting plugged into the Connected Learning community, we do have some information, but most of it is about the grant and about announcements and things that are coming up that we've got programmed. So it's up to you to decide who you want on the list. But it's a broadcast, primarily a broadcast listserv, so it's not really for conversing collaboratively as a group. So I did in the document put a list to our Winners Hub, and you will see that you have a group presence there, and we would love to get logos from you that are a little bit more interesting than what we have put up as placeholders. So if you have somebody who has already created that, please share that with me, and I will send it to our graphics person, and we can get that up on the web. And then we'll also be asking you, if you do not already, to please create an account on Haystack so that we can start getting you affiliated with your projects. Haystack is about changing the way we teach and learn, and we've got a huge community of about 14,000 members. So we do have other people who are going to be interested to see what you're doing and will be following along on your group presence. It's a Drupal site, so anybody who's familiar with Drupal will probably be familiar with some of the back end. And Demos and I are probably going to put on a webinar to walk people through what it is like to be on Haystack and posting some of this. So if you do feel like it's a little bit complicated, we'll make it easy for you coming up. So you already have a temporary group, and we have populated it with your group's description. If there's anything else that you want to add, any blogs that you want to do on your own time, feel free. We will be asking you to do some mandatory blogging periodically, and when we ask for interim reports and final reports, we do like to, you're feel free to give us a full report and let us know which parts of it we can make public, but we like to make that information that other people can learn from. And also, if you are going to be blogging or tweeting, or you are going to be posting blogs anywhere else, that information that we can tweet out, or any ways that we can follow your work, if you would share that with me as well, that'll help us stay all very networked and connected. Primarily, I probably am going to see you in emails and on webinars, and looking forward to meeting people face-to-face in California next week. So that's my role here, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up to some of the questions that we have from people who have populated this already. And as we talk, if things come up, feel free to write your questions in there. And if you really have a question that you want to actually come out of the deep and unmute yourself, feel free to do that as well. Just let us know in the chat so I can mute myself so there's not a lot of feedback. So let's get started. Jen Kinney, I'm going to put you on, and if you want to introduce people and let them know what your role is, you're going to get to know Jen, especially as we get the contracts rolling, and you'll meet her in California next week. So Jen, do you want to say hello?
Hi, everyone. I've spoke to all of you just about with getting all your contract information, and we've now sent that over to the sponsored projects administration, who will be continuing to push your contracts into effect. So that's where we stand with that, and I'll be the one that you'll be in contact throughout the year about that. I work with Yolanda, who's our financial analyst, who is the one who you'll be sending your invoices to, and then I basically cross-check that to make sure it aligns with your budget, and then we just make sure that you're staying on track with all of that. So that's my main end that I'll be doing throughout the year. Also, right now, with helping you with reimbursements for the upcoming travel, things like that. I've sent you correspondence regarding that. So if you have any further questions about travel, I'm the person to talk to. In terms of the LRNG event next week, I'm going to be sending you an email this afternoon that has further details about the hotel and getting to the center and all of that. So be looking for that. And welcome.
Great, thank you, Jen. So we're going to go ahead and jump into questions. We'll just go through them in order. And if you have a question that is related, feel free to add your question where you think it's going to be, where it will best fit, if we're still on the topic. So the first one is, with what frequency should we invoice, and what does that process look like?
Yep, so we don't really, this past competition, we didn't really keep a concrete one. Now this upcoming competition, it's a 9-month. So you can decide whether you want to do that in intervals or on a monthly basis, but nothing shorter than a month. So it's just after the month is complete, you can then send in the invoice that explains, according to your budget, how you've spent money. When you get your subcontracts, you'll actually have a form in there, and you just follow that, basically just saying like X number of dollars we spent on salaries, X number on travel, and so on. So again, yeah, that's going to be in your subcontract that you'll get when spas have finished with that. And 1 month or 3 months would probably be most advisable. That would work for you.
Great, thank you, Jen. So the next question is, can we begin incurring project expenses immediately, or is there a project start date?
Technically, the projects have already started. So what that means is we set the start date as September 1st. And although the contracts are getting written right now, you can start at any point in time. And what that means from an invoicing perspective is you'll be able to invoice as soon as everything's approved and negotiated between your institution and ours. So you can back invoice. That's why I say that 3-month and 1 month thing is if, say, in December you want to invoice from September to December, you'll be able to do that at that point in time. So you're already in effect technically.
The next question is about how to appropriately describe the funding we received. And I have put some boilerplate up above, and I'll move that down so that people have that there. But if you have any promotional materials that are going out, or if you're going to be drawing attention to it on your website, if you would use this boilerplate language like David mentioned, that would be great. So moving on to the next question. What is the expected lifespan and maintenance period of the playlists? How often do the playlists need to be updated, and what happens when some of the curated XP changed or are terminated? So this is a great question that we will address in depth next week. When we have the LRNG people, they'll be able to answer that. So this will be one of the questions that we shoot forward to their team to make sure that this is addressed. Sorry, do not have the question answered right now for everybody, but that's going to be a big part of what we do next week.
I can just add something quickly. I mean, off the top of my head, this is subject to revision because I'm just speaking from memory. LRNG is providing free accounts to each of your projects for 18 months. They are agreeing to host your project in perpetuity, whatever that means, as long as they exist, I guess. And any changes you make to that specific playlist that you create through this initiative can be made on that site. If you want to add anything additional to that after 18 months or any new playlists after 18 months, you'll have to create an account, whether it's individual or institutional is a choice you'll have to make. That comes with certain implications about costs and so on. Obviously, the institutional is significantly more expensive than the individual. That will be clarified next week for you all, but those are the basic parameters. So, the expectation is that you create the playlist, that you update the playlist as necessary. There will be the possibility of those both maintenance and renewal and what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of bettering updates available to you to the specific playlist or playlists that you create through the grant initiative. Pretty much in perpetuity of both the playlist and of the LRNG platform.
Thanks, David. I'm just going to say this sort of to segue to the next question, but also in anticipation of the next question. You are at the leading edge of this. I can tell you there's no academic literature on this. There's not really, there's not a defined community of people who are designing playlists for learning. And this is the nature of our award. We tend to be very experimental and innovative, and we learn from you. A lot of people are going to be following your work because you will be the groundbreakers. And so it's sort of, if you are comfortable working in innovative spaces, this is going to seem very normal to you. And if you're coming from a slightly different background and stepping into this DML world, the world of connected learning, sometimes the questions that you ask us are going to be ones that you're going to be answering for us, including this next question. So this question, what is the scope of the playlist, the number of participation hours equivalent to 3 credit courses, etc., is something that people are going to be figuring out for their own projects. And I know it would be great to have an answer, and maybe you're coming from environments where it's going to make more sense for you to figure out based on your context. So we're going to be figuring out all of these things together as a group. I can tell you with our Badges for Lifelong Learning, which was equally cutting edge, we spent the first workshop just talking about the fact that a badge is different than assessment. We spent a good part of the day just hammering out sort of what we were even talking about. So this is a very exciting competition for us, because I think we're going to bring together some interesting threads of research and design and communities of practice around this. So hopefully this will be a topic that we talk about next week, and you can take back to your team and have some ideas about how you might want to answer that question. So sorry to kick the can down the road, but that does happen a lot with our organization and our community.
Okay. Let me just add that, which is a way of supplementing or complementing what Cheryl's just said. there's no normative condition to playlists, other than some generic technical and technological possibilities and impossibilities. But the playlist for learning or playlists for learning that you create should be driven normatively by what it is that you're trying to achieve learning-wise from the playlist that you're creating. The point is to promote learning, and the technologies should serve the learning, not the learning, the development of the technology. Crucially important for us.
Yeah, thank you.
And the basic principle of connected learning, that connected learning is a theory about learning first and foremost, not a theory about technologies driving of learning.
Yes, that's a big part of the heart of what we are doing. Important to foreground that. So if anyone has any questions about that, feel free to jump in if you want any clarifying information about that. The next question, in case we don't have any other ones on that topic, can fee-based workshops or experiences be included in the level ups? David, do you want to tackle that one?
So I missed the first word. Do what based?
Can fee-based workshops or experiences be included in leveling up?
Yeah, I mean, it's a complicated question that I think requires, further discussion. It depends what the fee's for and what you're aiming to achieve. If it's part of a sustainability plan, that's one thing. If it's the MacArthur Foundation, who provide the funds, are a non-profit entity. It's a foundation, obviously, and so are bound legally by certain rules and requirements. We, Haystack, but particularly the University of California, Irvine, likewise are a non-profit institution, and are equally bound by certain legal requirements and so on. As we try to make clear in the terms and conditions and frequently asked questions and responses, if you are going to make a profit out of what you develop with these grant funds, it requires you to reinvest the profit in non-profit learning activities up to the level of the grant. I mean, beyond the level of the grant, you'd be free to make profit and do whatever you will legally with it. But up to the amount of the grant, it requires you contractually actually to reinvest those funds that you would generate beyond the costs you're incurring in the making of the playlist, to reinvest those in educational ventures that are not for profit. So you want to be very careful about that.
And I can see Mandy has dropped in some links to the terms and conditions. So if people want to look through that more closely at the language, we have it both in the chat, and I believe it's gone into the Google Doc as well, in case people want to read what we had in our terms and conditions.
So in every competition, this becomes a kind of ongoing conversation with not everybody, because not everybody is concerned with this question. But if you continue to have questions or challenged by some of the legal language and so on, don't hesitate to come back to it.
Yep. We're happy to get more specific. Oh, looks like Mandy has dropped it all in there.
But let me just say that the language that Mandy is pointing you to has been provided by the principal legal counsel at the MacArthur Foundation. So you want to attend closely to that language.
So great question, complicated answer. Hopefully, hopefully that helps you move forward. David, this might also be a good question for you. Can you clarify the expectations for the award? Is it mainly focused on the development of the playlist or also implementation?
I would say both. I mean, obviously, development comes first. I mean, there's a kind of serial condition to the issues involved over here. If in the development of your playlist, you both have resources and time available in order to proceed with implementation, we would urge you strongly to do that. Obviously, if the award enables you to get only so far and that precludes moving to a position of implementation, we understand that. I mean, these are development grants after all. But, the point is to get things implemented. Ultimately, I guess as much from your point of view as ours, we would like to see proof of concept.
Great, thank you. This sounds like another question that would be great to discuss at the LRNG workshop, and we'll make sure that this one gets sent forward to probably Tim Cook is going to be the person that will help answer this. The question is, are badges automatically awarded upon completion, or does someone need to assess the submission and then issue the badge? I think that is going to be something that everybody's workshopping and maybe even discussing in advance. The people who have already been working on the LRNG platform or working with playlists and badging, what has worked best. Maybe help you also figure out what might work best in your context. David, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I would just add that, obviously this requires thinking about what you want the badge to do, or the badges to do, and how you think about the implementation of those badges as you think about the development of your playlist and what you're trying to achieve with it. So again, it's a more, if not complicated, certainly a question that requires a greater degree of consideration by you on the part of what you are trying to achieve with your playlist and what you're trying to achieve by the badging of that playlist as it's developed and implemented.
Yeah, I think we will be rolling up our sleeves to talk about many of the points that you just discussed, David. That'll be really interesting part of next week. And,
I should just add that Cheryl, nationally at the very least, is the go-to person on badging and assessment. So you should feel free to badger her about these questions as much as anybody else. Sorry to put you on the spot, Cheryl.
No, I'm fine. I can get very nerdy about this topic. So if anybody wants to completely geek out on badges and assessment and those kinds of things, I'm happy to do that. Have not hit a saturation point yet, strangely enough. So the next question is it possible for participants funded by other travel funds to get copies of travel information for next week? And then addended to that is, can I hop on the bus to Microsoft from Mountain View? I guess this is coming from the same person. Jealous that this person is so close they can hop on a bus.
Yeah.
I think the first part of the question is by copies of travel information, meaning just sort of the basics, or I don't think that's asking for people from other travel funds to go, but if whoever asked that question is in the webinar, feel free to clarify.
Oh, hi. Sorry, it's Carissa from Providence. I meant to be asking that I'm using other travel funds to travel there from Rhode Island, and I have a colleague going there. But so I will be traveling to Mountain View, but I'm not quite sure how to figure out how to get to Microsoft from my hotel, and didn't know if I could join a bus.
Yeah, the travel information will be included in the document I'll be sending out this afternoon. And that has the address of the hotel and it has the address of Microsoft. And we'll also be, we aren't busing, but because it's such a small number, but we'll be like arranging cabs and Ubers rather than everybody getting their own. We'll be meeting up ahead of time to do that. So that's all in the letter that I'll be sending.
And do you think that's going out to, my concern is it's going to someone who is being funded through DML, but I'm being funded separately.
It's going to go to the people that I've been in contact with, which I've been in contact with you, not Jill.
Yeah, okay, good.
So you'll have to forward it on to Jill.
Sherry, yes, thank you. Good. Thank you.
All right.
And you know, for those of you who are on the webinar, just to make sure we get everything to the right people, if you want to add your email addresses, I've asked people to send me email addresses so that you're all in the listserv. And if that's not done by the time Jen sends it out, why don't you drop your email addresses in there and we can make sure that all this information gets to you, since it sounds like you may be the representatives for your, or at least reporting back to your organizations. So Jen, if you can use these email addresses as well, that'll make sure that we get in touch with everybody who needs this information. If you can clarify the period of performance, David, I think somebody's asking for us to clarify that the grant starts on September 1st until what date?
9 months.
So end of May.
Mm.
The next question is if we have edits on our blurb for our, okay, this is coming from Sandboxes for Learning. So if you have a blurb up on the Winners Hub and you would like to make any edits, you can send those to me and I will make sure that Demos gets them and he will make edits. We've done that for a couple projects already. So if you have any, and hopefully for those of you brave enough, you could get your accounts and start associating with your groups and you can actually edit that information. If it changes throughout the course of the grant, you will be able to access that and do it yourself. But if you want to just cut some corners right now and have it done right away, we'd be happy to do that for you. And that goes for also putting your logo up. If people feel comfortable working with Drupal, it's very easy, like everything else that you do when you're uploading a photo, very simple steps to go through. But again, if you would like us to upload it, we'd be happy to do that for you as well. And the same question for the public site. We want to make sure you have the right address for fiscal agent and contract.
Hi, Cheryl. It's just Christina. The question was really because the blurb has National Marine Project in New York. So I want to make sure that you guys just have the right address overall. So if I send it to you, you can just check all that.
Meaning on our end, is all the information that needs to go to you going to you instead of going to the wrong email?
Well, it's just that National Marine Project is based in Berkeley and that's where the contract should go to.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure that we have like all that aligned. And then New York is, Paul Allison's here from New York and he's one of the, I mean, he's like directing it. So, but
Jen, can you make note of that in your files?
Berkeley, California is the fiscal site and the contracting site.
Is that what you entered for the information that you submitted? I don't think we put that on there. I don't remember from Berkeley. What was what's your project?
Sandboxes for Learning. I could send you both an email.
Yeah.
Paul and I could clarify this. Okay.
So the blurb is probably coming from your application.
Yeah.
But everything else, I'm guessing Jen has probably got it aligned with you, but we can work it out by email and make sure.
Okay, great, thanks.
So the next question is, can you clarify about creating an account for Haystack? Maybe I haven't given enough of an introduction to Haystack. Haystack is a network of networks and it's free to join, and we represent a lot of people who I consider to be either vibrant communities in areas that are doing similar work, changing the way we teach and learn, or they are individuals who are outliers in institutions where they really want a place online to connect. And we have the Winners Hub as part of what Haystack does. When you go to our site, you can see that there's a DML competition. We are under DML competition 6. Demos has kindly set up the site for us. And somebody, I think that's Mandy, is putting in a link there if you'd like to get started. If you're a self-starter, and like to go at your own pace, feel free to do that. We probably are going to offer a webinar just to introduce people to the site and let you know that this is a resource for you, a way to connect with other people who are interested in this work. And this is where you will be posting blogs. You're welcome to cross-post. That's certainly not a problem. And we will be also putting part of your report, the part that you would like to be publicly facing, we'll be putting this on the Winners Hub as well. So there will be a couple opportunities to walk through. We had people in past competitions who like having a webinar so we can just work through it, and it can be a working webinar. We're actually getting people logged in. But it's nice for you if you already know how to do that so that you can update your information yourself. Very easy to do, but we'll have a webinar and orient people to it. And you may have somebody on your team who is going to be doing this who is not here today. So feel free to let them know that that will be coming down the pipe soon too. And the next question is, can playlists created for this grant be hosted on other platforms other than LRNG? And if so, do they need to be modified in some way?
The answer is absolutely. I mean, the more platforms, the merrier. Whether they need to be modified is dependent on the requirements of the hosting platform. There's no requirement that that the playlist look different from the playlist being hosted on the LRNG platform, if that's the sort of thrust of the question. It could be, the identical playlist as such, so that's not an issue. And the CFP for the grant, for the competition, was explicit about encouraging even multiple platforms.
And this is probably a good time to say, we do have some grantees that have experience doing this and have been doing a lot of work in this area. And we will tap you as a resource to co-learn with everybody else. If there is something that we feel you're doing that is really leading the way, we would love to have you come in and teach everybody else. I think we're going to have an opportunity for that next week in California, but we also want to make sure that everybody who's not there gets access to that information as well. So part of our programming going forward as we sort of take stock next week is to figure out how to use our time and our resources to bring everybody into the space and kind of keep the feeling of the workshop going forward online so that we can gain momentum as a group together. So if you feel like you have something, I know from just some of the names of some of the grantees, I'm familiar with their work, but if you feel like, I think we have been trailblazers in this area, or we have some things that we think would be great to share with people, please let me know, because we would love to sign you up and start organizing some dates, get some save the dates on the calendar for webinars like this around those topics.
Let me just say, just to go back to the question itself, that it's not an option not to host on LRNG, but it is an option to host also elsewhere. So LRNG is a necessary, not necessarily a sufficient condition of the competition.
Yeah, I think what is what this ties into in terms of the call for this competition is to scale connected learning. So anything that will scale connected learning, playlist being the mechanism that we are focused on here, but anything that is going to scale the learning content that you are trying to promote is part of the spirit of this grant. So that is all of the questions that we have for now. We are not above ending the webinar before an hour is out. So if people feel like they've asked their questions and you want a little bit of time between your next meeting, we can end the webinar early. If you have any other questions after, feel free to email me, and I'll make sure that if David needs to vet it or it has to go to Jen, we'll make sure that we get answers to your questions. And if you have any questions as you're traveling and you're trying to figure out, or you get lost and end up in some other state, anything like that, you want to let us know, feel free to email me. I will be checking my email and making sure that everybody is at least in touch.
Cheryl will come and get you personally.
I will, within reason, I'll try to do my best to get you to the conference in case Uber takes you somewhere strange. We will be trying to group together. It's nice to see some faces that will help me identify people, but we'll try to, before the event, as people are going from the hotel over to the Microsoft Technology Center, we'll try to get people into the same cabs and Ubers. I think a lot of people might even be coming in from the East Coast that morning, and maybe the first time we meet will be at the center. But same thing, at the end of the day, we'll try and coordinate and have everybody back to the hotel. And the next morning, we're going to meet at 7:45 to get over there by 8. So look for familiar faces, and we'll try and get ourselves over there in one push. Does anyone have any other questions? If not, we're going to call it a wrap. It was great to meet everybody, at least by name and some by face. And I'm really excited about what is going to happen. It's amazing to me that you were all able to get this on your schedule and be in this webinar on such short notice. And also that you were able to change your schedules and be in Mountain View. I think even though for some of you, you'll be coming from the East Coast and it's a long way, I think it's going to be great. I have found, and maybe David, you can back this up, that when we start off our grants with a face-to-face workshop, it makes it absolutely a great experience, and networking is priceless and invaluable, really. So I'm looking forward to seeing everybody next week, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to come and ask questions and start the year off.
Travel well. See you in a week. Thanks very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Everybody.
Bye-bye, everyone.